this is for the one who ain't never had a love, yeah. This one's for the girl who don't feel like she's enough, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. This one's for the cool kid playing on the school team, crying to himself cause he never had the prom queen. Head full of wands, but they said it's just a pipe dream, yeah. This one's for the kids like me, they never had one day. The ladies always turn their cheek, but they ain't let the fat ones sing. This one's for the kids like me, kept working when they had nothing. When people try to take their dreams, they stuck it to them, please don't change. For the nerds and the misfits, bullied by the rich kids.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Alex Cuesta Show. How's everybody doing out there on this Thursday, August 28th, 2025? So yes, it's not a Wednesday. We pushed it back to Thursday today, and no, there is still no David. He is playing hooky, and we just dislike him here because he's never on. It seems like he's never around. He pops in for an episode and then he disappears for like 20 more, but we shall persevere. I hope everybody is doing well out there. I appreciate you all, whether you are watching from YouTube, X, Facebook, Kick, Rumble, wherever you're watching from. Thank you. Please make sure, like, share, follow, do all of that good stuff. And if you want to find us on social media, just go search for the Alex Cuesta Show. We are there. So last week, David was actually with us, and we got to talk to two of our good buddies, coaches Steve Fentz, who's the New Egypt head coach over in Jersey, and also the supervisor athletics. That's his newer title. And head coach Tommy Farrell from Manchester Township. Coach Farrell, they played their first game today. So we talked all about their season, their upcoming stuff, what they wanted to do. So it was a great time. Go back, give that a listen if you want to hear two of the better coaches in New Jersey kind of talking about their teams, talking football and stuff. It was a really good show. Always fun to talk to them. But then this week, I get the fortunate part of I get to go from talking to a few of my friends over in the football realm, and now I get to talk to another one of my good buddies. So let's bring him in right now. He is Brandon Scoopy Robinson, is an NBA insider, host of Scoopy Radio, and also curator of culture. What's going on, Scoop?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I am doing well. I always appreciate whenever you jump on, and it's always a good time talking to you. We always have a blast. So I wanted to start off, we're going to have a little bit of fun because you, being a NBA insider, knowing your thing, you've gained some haters. And when you got some haters, when you got people that constantly just look at everything you do and, poo-poo on it, you tend to get some fun content out of it. Now, me, as people that have listened to the show know, I am running for local office. I said that. I'm going for my town board, and I kind of did like my, I guess, social media announcement, right, Scoop? You saw that. I made my pages and stuff and put out my my palm card, the front and back of it. And I'm not going to put it on screen because I don't want to dox anybody. But I had a very interesting lady troll me and basically call me Fidel Castro, which I thought was hilarious, equated me to liking Hitler, and basically said she'd set up a bear trap if I came and knocked on her door. So, Scoop, to the level of the trolling that you've gotten, how is this?
It's a good introductory level, and you should expect more of it. Um, I don't. I think, assuming you win, you can't respond the way that I respond.
No. No. You know what's funny? Because I was like, and I was talking to my wife about it, and I'm like, do I make it a funny response? So I'd be like, then I better get ready to like bounce around bear traps for fun. But it's better off just leaving it alone, right? When it comes to me and my political aspirations, I guess.
Or if you win, you set up a prop the day after the election, and you put their comment in the post of the picture with you playing in a bear trap, or you buy a bear trap, or you like next to a bear, and you create something funny with it, but you blur out their name because they will get mad when you respond to them, but they can say whatever they want.
And it's funny too because like they want to put their name online, they put themselves out there, but then if you dare to do it, all of a sudden it's like, oh no, I can put my stuff out there, but if you put out there that I said it publicly to you, then it's a big deal. Like
I'll
people are
never
laughing.
listen. I'll never forget. This was few years ago. This is when all of the hoopla about Kyrie joining the Lakers allegedly was a thing, and I probably was one of the only um, people in my field who said that Kyrie wasn't interested in joining the Lakers. And I know that somebody who was obviously a Laker fan had tweeted something at me, and I looked at their profile picture, and they had a very huge overbite. And I'll never forget my response to them was that they looked like they could bite an apple through a picket fence. And like everybody laughed. It was like hilarious. Like it was to the point like my editors and my producers were texting me like you're horrible and laughing. And this person was so upset they rallied like a bunch of troops to comment under and at the company that I was working for at the time. Is this what your employees do? Disrespecting women. And people were like, oh, please, you've been saying stuff to him all day. The minute he says one thing to you and everybody's laughing at you, you're
Yep,
mad.
that's how it works.
And it just was funny. But like I was getting text messages from other colleagues. I was getting text messages from players, execs, like, yo, where did you come up with that? And it was like an ongoing thing for like a week. Like I would go places, they'd be like, yo, you ever see anybody eat an apple through a picket or bite an apple through a picket fence? And it was like a running joke. But people can dish it out, but they can't take it.
And it's like one of those things too, like with this and like putting out my stuff, like I've gotten so much more support. And I think you get this too, right? More people support you than are negative, but it's the negative ones that are super loud. Like I've told you before, we've talked, you got an army behind you. Like, there's a bunch of people that know you're the best insider in all of the NBA insiders. You talk to the players where they talk to execs basically. So that's a big difference, right? And from what I've noticed is I've gotten people that I haven't talked to in years from my hometown, just congratulating me, good luck. And all the people, liking your post. And while that doesn't mean much, it's still, when you haven't talked to a person in a minute, it is pretty cool that, they're acknowledging and things like that. So, it's one of those things like I got that hater right there, but at the same time, I have a bunch of people that are wishing me well. And that's always nice.
Hmm. Oh, definitely, definitely. And when you talk about not seeing somebody in a while, and then when you see them and it's love, I can relate to that too. I think both can be true. I've seen it from the player side, and I've seen it in the stands. I won't give the city away, but there's one city that I really enjoyed going to, and there are fans in that arena that call my name, and I'll go up to them and speak to them during games. And then I remember that particular game. LeBron was working out pregame,
Yep.
and I was standing with one of his close confidant, and when he walked off the court, he pointed and he yelled, "B Scoop!" And there's only two celebrities in my industry that called me that. It's LeBron and a woman who I'm very very cool with. Her name is Tahiri Jose. She was on Love and Hip Hop, and
Nice.
when she'll text me, she'll text B Scoop. She doesn't call me. They're the only two people in the industry that call me that. But the point I'm making is, when you have the game's best player acknowledging you,
Yep.
and then that same arena that night, you have fans in that arena that acknowledge you and know your work. You're doing something right.
Absolutely. So it's like, the hate's fun. And I just laugh at it. Like, that's the thing. I read it. And at first, when they were like Fidel Castro lookalike, I'm like, I should be offended, but that's hilarious, right? Like, because obviously it's racist as hell because you see that I'm Spanish looking. So you call me Fidel Castro. And it's like, and then it's funny too. It's like to call me Fidel Castro, but then say that you're mad at me because I don't align with your views, but you want me to have the views of a communist murderous dictator, Fidel Castro. It's like, it doesn't, it doesn't align.
But I'll be honest with you. I think what politicians and journalists have in common right now, I think we are very low on the totem pole
Yes.
because there's a level of distrust. that the general public has in journalists and politicians, because they're both perceived as liars. And when you have a platform like social media, people can voice those levels of this disenchantment with those two positions. And I think, as a politician and as a journalist, we have the onus of trying to do better, doing the best that we can, and hope that the work speaks for itself.
Yeah, you gotta have thick skin, and like I agree with distrusting all politicians. Like I'm about to enter into it. Don't trust me until I do something, right? Like judge me by what I'm doing. Like I don't trust politicians. I dislike most of them. When it comes to journalists, you gotta pick and choose and be discerning, right? And there's good journalists that do good work like you, and there's others in your field that do really good work, that consistently, are either right on it or in the peripheral. And if they do make a mistake, they'll talk about it, right? Like I've called out before, and I'm not a big fan of Diana Rossini. I don't know if you know her, but
I don't.
so because last year I'm a Jets fan, and she obviously had just a giant like vendetta to go against Aaron Rodgers because during the whole saga, Aaron Rodgers was basically like, "Listen, you don't have my number, you don't know anything about me," and then from there she just made it her whole quest to ruin his Jets tenure. And for me, I was like, that's just kind of whack, and I didn't trust a single thing she reported. So but in the end, Diana's going to do what Diana does. She is a well-respected journalist. A lot of people in the sports world like her. A lot of
Hmm.
people trust her. So it is what it is. But from me and my perspective, what I looked at, I was like, meh. But again, this is just
Yeah.
me not being able to not being afraid to call these people out because I'm
Well, I don't know Diana. We have mutual friends or colleagues in the industry.
yeah.
I can't speak for her, but what I will say is that in my industry, there are some of my colleagues who don't like certain players, and they'll
Yeah.
make it their business to expose them, make them look bad, um, and I've heard that conversation, but I've also been in locker rooms where I've been by lockers, and there have been players who have called a reporter's name in the locker room and said, and I quote, "Yo, motherfucker, I seen that damn tweet you tweeted," and it'll be a conversation. Like I've seen it. I've seen it. I've seen it. I'll say there is a current NBA champion team, current reigning champion, and I've been in a locker room where I've heard players on that team who have said that to my peers, and we're laughing about it. And then they'll have a conversation. But I think it's how you handle it. And of
Yeah.
course, that Yo MFer reference, they said it in joke, but then they furthered the conversation. And then,
Of course.
that particular reporter colleague of mine went and expanded on that story. And, they went about their business. But there are situations where it's a lot worse. And I've heard players who have told me what reporters they don't like and why. And it's an interesting. There's always been this them versus us mentality. If you can find a way to kind of be bipartisan, still do your job, and get along, it's a balancing act. But you
I
know,
find it so hard in your field too because now you have like Jets Twitter, you have Nets Twitter, you have like each team has their own Twitter kind of sphere now, right? And you have like your like trusted reporters within that sphere, your major blogs that report pretty well that are at like training camp, and they do have access because I think the NBA, MLB, all of them have realized that look at John Boy Media with the Yankees talking Yanks and stuff like that. They realize that this podcasting outlet, these online influencers, do have a major impact on fan perception. So, how has that affected you in that sense? Because you've been pretty good. Scoopy Radio was around well before the podcasting space like truly blew up, right? Like you've been doing that for a minute. How does it affect you as more of a traditional journalist, right? Look, you are more of a traditional sports journalist that has always kept branching out as well. How has what's been going on in the influencer space and the podcast space affected you and what you do?
I think I had a body of work before all of that took place, and I think that's what's different than some of my peers. But I think in addition to that, I think it's my presence outside of just the locker room. Um, you know, there are there are parties that I attend where I'm not going to give the location away, but I'll just say there are parties that I've been to where there are star players who have walked in through the kitchen with a blunt in their hand, and we're having a conversation. There have been parties where um, I've walked out of an event with Kevin Durant, and he's getting in his car, and we're having a conversation about things that have nothing to do with basketball. Um,
Because they're
about
people.
right, there have been parties where when I've walked in, Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma are there, and it's a conversation over a drink and just the workout and all the things that are going on there.
Yep.
There are places that like Soho House is a membership only club. I'm a member, and there are players in the NBA that you bump into at depending on what city you're in and where you're having side conversations about things. And I think that there is such a thing as of outlets having access, but that access is sanctioned by the teams. It's the access, the stuff that's outside of it, where you're told things there directly from players, and you're able to get what you need. So I think it's always finding ways to be in the know, knowing where to hang out. And I'm not just going just because they're going to be there. Like, there's parties and places I'm going to. I've brought my friends and my family, and we're chilling, just like the rest. I'll never forget. A couple of years ago, I was invited to Jaylen Brown's uh, nonprofit event that he was having at the Boston Museum, and I when I got there, Blake Griffin was hosting the event. Tatum was there.
Nice.
Brown was there. Joe Mazzulla was there, and they were actually playing the Miami Heat in a home and home in Boston, and it was Jalen's event, and I had gotten there a little late, and I was there with my significant other, and when I got there, I said, "Joe, can you give me a few minutes?" And he looks at me, he goes, "What you want to know, Scoop?" And he looked at my lady and goes, "Cause he always want to say some shit, and then when he get the answer, you see what happens." And we're all laughing. And he gave me some time, about 10, 15 minutes later. And I remember I actually left Boston like 2 days later, and I think I wrote it. I flew to Minnesota from Boston, and I wrote it. And I ran into Jalen maybe like 2 months later in Atlanta, and he goes, "Yo, I like that piece you wrote. That was some good shit." And I say, "Yeah." And it wasn't nothing crazy. And he fell out laughing because he remembered the conversation. Those conversations, they carry on over the
Yeah.
course of the season. And, once they get used to you and there's a give and take, you gotta act like you belong. But it's a dance. It's a dance. It's a cadence. And it's a continuous dance and a cadence.
And that's kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, like when you get to see old friends and things like that, right? Because you're constantly traveling, you're going into different spots, and the players, a lot of them are on the move too, especially in the current NBA where superstars don't stay home like they used to, right? You're not going to catch a guy that's starting and finishing his career, maybe doing one move, right? They're all moving just as much as kind of your role players. So you could be in an arena, and I can imagine that relationship built in one area helps you get access in another area that you maybe didn't have. And I remember not too long ago, we were talking, and you have that relationship right with Draymond, where Draymond won't talk with many people all the time. Like sometimes I don't want to give a lot of words. And honestly, if I'm Draymond Green, I'm looking and going, you can hear me talk all the time on my podcast. I don't need to talk to you, right? Everything I need to say, I say there. But for you, since you have built that rapport, you're one of the guys, he would sit there and go, "You only Scoop, everyone else go home," right? Like, how does it feel?
And that literally happened.
You were telling me about it. So talk about like what happened there.
I don't want to give up the city, but what I'll
Yeah,
say
yeah.
is, first of all, I'll say that the rapport with Draymond that I developed began in the 2020. Actually, it developed during the 21-22 season. I caught Draymond in DC, and I could kind of sense this was in the spring of 22 that the Warriors were beginning to make a run, and I could kind of sense that these guys could end up going deep in the playoffs and maybe the finals.
Yep.
And I remember spending some time with him after a game in a press conference in DC and asking him certain questions. And then I was going on TV and talking about Draymond and just the things that I was kind of chronicling with the Warriors. And then the Warriors ended up making it to the finals. And I'll tell you, Alex, I'll be very honest with you. The 22 finals between the Celtics and the Warriors,
Yep.
to this day, players who are on those respective teams who have even moved on, there's still when I see them, they stop and we're hugging and we're speaking, or they're lacing their shoes and they see me and look up and they'll get up and some of those guys, I can pick up a phone and call, and that's just relationship over time.
And that's a sign of respect, mutual respect too, right?
It
Which
is.
is hard to build and keep.
It is. And what I'll say is that I remember vividly the relationship with Draymond kind of morphed. I'll share the story. So in the finals in 22, I don't remember if I was in Boston or Golden State, but this was before a game, before like the day before a game. There was like media access, but then there's media access, and then there's hallways. The hallways, insiders know how to play those hallways in the tunnels.
Yep.
Chris Haynes beat me to Draymond, and he was waiting for Draymond to do something, and I'm standing behind Chris, and Chris is waiting for Draymond. Somebody from the league was like, "You got to test to me. You got to go. You got to go." But they don't tell Chris that he has to go. And Draymond looks at me. He goes, "I got you next time." So probably like the next day, Draymond is walking and he sees me and I make eye contact and my camera guy is there with me. And there's a guy from the league going, "No, he's got to go. He's got to go." And I'm looking at Draymond and Draymond's not moving. And I said to Dre, "You got to go." He goes, "Brother, I'm not moving right now. This is me and you." And that's when the relationship really started to morph. So you fast forward to the next season. I'm in a city. The Warriors are away. And he sees me before the game. And he hugs me. And I said, "You got a few minutes for me after the game?" He goes, "I got you." So after the game, I'm in the locker room. Raymond Ritter, who is the Warriors head of PR.
Yep.
Like Draymond's not talking to anybody. Like Draymond's in the locker room noticeably mad about something. And I don't remember what it was. And I don't know. But I'm in the locker room. Steph Curry's on his phone, FaceTiming with his kids and his wife after the game. Draymond is sitting a little bit ahead of him, and Andre Iguodala is off to the side. My camera person is concerned because I have to do this interview on camera, and all you see is butts. Like people got towels on. So she's trying.
Well, I mean, they're in the locker room, right?
Right. So Draymond gets in the shower. Separate thought. Draymond gets in the shower. He does what he
Pause.
needs to do. Right, pause. And then he's getting ready. Raymond Ritter says to me, "Draymond's not doing any interviews tonight." I'm like, "You sure about that?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "I don't know about that." So Draymond's done. Draymond sees two reporters who are beat reporters, and I literally watched Draymond curse those reporters out because there was something that was written about them. And I'm not going to go into all the details because I don't want to give it away. But what I'll say is there were two local beat reporters covering the Warriors, and he told them that they had to go. And one of the reporters was noticeably embarrassed because of what he said. And he looks at Raymond Ritter, he points at me, and he goes, "He's the only person I'm talking to tonight." And he gives me the one-on-one interview.
That's awesome. That's fantastic that you've been able to build that. And have you found that not only in the NBA, but all across, because you are, now spanning all sorts of sports, you've dipped into music your whole career. Have you found people have been much more guarded in terms of who they talk to and
Oh,
the
for
things
sure.
that they're saying and the people that they
sure.
trust in order to give those types of conversations to?
I noticed it. Way before the space that I'm in now. I'll tell you a funny story. I can tell you stories for days. I remember when we were on lockdown during COVID, and I right before everybody was getting ready to go to the bubble, and I did this interview with Mark Cuban. And after I did the interview, I had to write it. And I wrote the article, and it was getting picked up by everybody the next day. While I'm writing it, Jamal Crawford calls me, and he goes, this is when the Nets signed him to go and he went to the bubble with the Nets.
Yep.
And he goes, "You busy?" I answer, he goes, "You busy?" I go, "Yeah, I'm writing this interview about that I did with Mark Cuban. He goes, well, shit, never mind. I was going to give you an exclusive tonight, but since you busy with Mark Cuban, I'll go. I said, Jamal, stop effing playing with me. He fell out laughing. And we ended up
You
recording.
can't say no to Jay Crossover, man. Can't.
Never. And Jamal and our relationship really, I'll be honest with you, really developed further when he was kind of in a very interesting place with teams and not wanting to sign him. And it seemed that some of the teams that were in the league that their executives that were in it, it seemed like there were points where it was a bit personal, where it exceeded outside the level of just his age, I'll just say. And there were conversations that he and I were having outside of reporting based off of talking to execs, talking to whom I knew. And
the off the record stuff, right? Yeah.
Yes, off the record stuff. And I'll say that is where we really developed that trust. So finally, when he signed with the team, there were a couple times, he like there was a point I think he signed with Phoenix, and I remember he came. Then they played the Nets, and I came pregame, and I didn't even have a credential, but I walked down because I knew the security, and he was like so happy for us to see each other because there was just this process of was he going to get signed or not, and then when we were all on lockdown, he signed with the Nets. It was kind of the same thing, and it's just Jamal is somebody that is really a measuring stick. I say Jamal and Kyrie Irving are two measuring sticks for trust. And I've often, one of my favorite TV shows is a show called New York Undercover. It was made by the people who made Law and Order, Dick Wolf. Yep. And New York Undercover, to me, I relate so much to it more that I'm older, because it's being a reporter or being an insider, you kind of play the role of an undercover cop because you hear so many different things.
And you got to know when to pick and choose, when to push that button, when to pull back. And,
right.
And it's like, when do I ask permission or when do I go ahead with it? It's like, you got to know. And I guess that also comes with knowing the players, knowing the things, right? Because I've talked to you before and you found yourself in some hot water where you've reported something you thought was just fine, right? Like something you thought wasn't going to be a big deal. And all of a sudden, you're texting me and it's like, yo, I just got this phone call and that wasn't good. And it's like, but that comes with the territory, right?
Yeah. Or sometimes you can be accurate about something, but it draws too much attention.
Yeah.
A perfect example of that I'll share was January 6th of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
When they rioted the Capitol.
Yep.
And Kyrie Irving did not play that day. And I made a lot of phone calls and nobody answered their phone. I did get a call from someone, and the tweet was, the reason why Kyrie Irving did not play today, per a close source, I just did not want to play. It was fine at first, but what ended up happening was that night they played the 76ers. It was a home game at the Barclays Center. And that tweet became a topic of conversation in press conferences. They were asking Steve Nash about my tweet.
Yep.
And then the tweet made its way to TNT, which meant millions of people saw that tweet. Oh, I got a call the next morning. And there are times where you can be 100% accurate and people are still mad.
Is that one of the times though where like you answer the phone and they're mad and it's like, yo, then pick up your phone, right? Like when I when I call, like obviously you don't want to like push it, but it's like if you would have given me a little more, I could have given a little more, and that, you know what I mean, type of deal. But I guess it's that push and pull, right? And
I'll tell you another quick story. I got stories for days. I've been in situations where I've been in a Northeast city and I'm getting ready to leave that city, and I've run into an executive from a certain team in the Northeast who sees me, and I said hi to them. They see me. I'm getting out of my Uber to go to inside the train station. That executive sees me, and they didn't reply to my last text, but then tells me what my last text was. And I said, oh, you saw my text, but you couldn't reply to my damn text message, but you speak to me now. And we're at the train station laughing. And I didn't say damn.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things like when people know your tweets are for real or your reporting is for real, and they know you tell the truth, or you know that you hear things, you invoke a lot of different emotions, and it's a tricky thing.
Have you found that this is why a lot more players are starting to do podcasts, and the ones that can speak, right? Because it gives them that they're bypassing, right? They don't have to go through the reporter to get there. Like if you're a current player, you're more likely to go on All the Smoke, right? Because you're talking to two players, two people in the fraternity. You can trust them, right? They're your boys. You're going on with KG and Pierce, Hart and Brunson, like those things, because number one, they're funny. They're good at what they do. A lot of these guys, Draymond's very good at podcasting too. But now it's like, okay, we trust Scoop, but maybe we're not, like, we want to do something different. So let's go talk to our boys, or let's make our own show so we can talk about what we want. Do you think that's one of the reasons why a lot of them are doing it?
I think it's useful for them to say how they feel, but I still do think that having a journalist or a journalist ally is necessary, because I still believe that good journalism exists and
Yes.
framing of stories matter. I'll use an example, and I don't think she'll have a problem with me publicly sharing it, because we went on record. Boxer Clarissa Shields
Yeah.
was kind of caught in the middle of something where she was expressing how she felt on Twitter about Angel Reese getting a BET award for Woman Athlete of the Year. And what ended up happening was a lot of blogs and a lot of Twitter accounts ended up picking up what she was saying and making it as if she was bashing Angel Reese. I'm cool with Angel. I'm very cool with Clarissa. And I called Clarissa and I said, listen, I know what you were saying, but I know how people took it. And I like you and I like Angel, but we have to clear this up, because it's nothing worse. It's the gift that keeps on giving for journalists to pit two black women against each other as if they're angry with one another. And I say, do you have a few minutes to clear this up? And we ended up recording it and dropping it the next day. And it cleared all of it up. And so I feel like in my opinion, her tweeting about she didn't mean it like this is only going to go but so far. A journalist telling the story and crafting it in a way where she tells her side of the story, in some aspects, is still going to win. And when this athlete and the journalist work together to get things done, it gets a better result.
And I can imagine the fact that since you have a good relationship with Angel as well, that also holds a little more clout, because now if Angel's seeing, okay, Scoop's also with this, and I know I could pick up the phone and text Scoop or call Scoop and just be like, what's good with this? Like, he'll be honest with me like that. Obviously, like you said, if you have that intermediary you trust, it's sometimes a mediator, right? For some of these things. And it certainly can be helpful, but also Clarissa ain't afraid of nobody, because she can knock 99% of people out, so she can say whatever the hell she wants.
She can, and I'll leave it at that. I consider Clarissa a friend,
Yeah.
And the relationship extends outside of just journalist and athlete, in the sense of conversations that we've had about life. And I had my intent was to have her best interest at heart, and she knew it when I reached out. And I texted her first and I said, you got a few minutes? And I called her and we talked about it. And I think that is I think that level of rapport is rare, because it goes back to your original question about trust.
Yep.
Players don't trust journalists, just like people in cities don't trust cops. But there are good cops out there, just like there are bad ones out there. And it goes back to what I said about the TV show New York Undercover. When you find somebody who is an ally, when you find somebody that tries to see both sides, or tries to come to a conclusion while seeing both sides, who's someone who is fair, I think they're more apt to listen to you. I'll be honest with you. I think the part about my career that's both enjoyable, part scary, and part wow at the same time, is when I'm walking in an arena and a player who I've never spoken to says, "Yo, what's up, Scoop?" And I'm like, "Damn, he knows me." And I clearly remember that a couple of years ago, when I was at All-Star Weekend in Utah, and I've never met Zion Williamson a day in my life. And I was walking one way, he was walking another way, and he looks and he stops and he runs up to me and hugs me. And I'm like, he was like, "Yo, you the man." And I was like I was playing it cool, but I was like,
Yo, Zion knows me. Like,
right, because he sees my tweets. And it's like, you just never know how your work, people will see your work before they see you. But I don't just want to have the reputation of just being cool or being a player's friend. I want to have the reputation of doing good work and being fair.
Yeah. Have you noticed that being on 2K helps a little bit too? Because you've been on 2K for years now, as a person that pops up as an insider that's given the little blurbs about players and things like that. And we all know players and a lot of big time names love and play 2K. I know 2K was it dropped today or tomorrow? I think one of these days, right? Yeah, 2K is dropping soon, and it's like, and again, are you going to be in there again this year?
I don't know. Actually, I signed a contract that lasted, I think, through 21 or 22. So I've actually been out of it for a while.
Okay.
Just haven't re-upped. But so I would assume I'm not, but I'm sure that at some point we'll talk and it'll be a conversation again. But it's to answer your question directly about the
Kind of exposure via
the
just having
exposure.
your face pop
Yeah,
up in there.
yeah. I definitely think the combination of the game and just my tweets and just the viral moments definitely account for something.
To this day, I'll tell you right now, because everyone knows my profession is a driving instructor. To this day, I'll have basketball fans who will quote "ain't shit funny." And they'll say that to me, and I'll say, "Listen, I actually am good friends with the
But
dude that put that out there." And they're like, "No way." I'm like, "Yeah, Brandon Scoopy Robinson.
and
If you don't know, look him up."
it's so random. The conversation with, like, I'll be honest with you, like that conversation with Cam was actually an off the record conversation, but it was a conversation that was harmless.
Hmm.
That I put it out there, and it morphed into its own thing. And it's funny, I was at a party, and Danny Green was at this party, and I had an Ain't Shit Funny T-shirt on.
I know. I want one of those. You got to make me one.
Danny Green looks at my shirt and he goes, "Ain't shit funny. That's the Cam Thomas thing." I said, "Yo, you know that Cam said that to me?" He goes, "I'm not surprised." I said, "Why?" He goes, "Because that sounds like some shit you'd write."
The thing is, too, it's like with Cam, it kind of shaped the perception of him around the league, though, as someone who wasn't satisfied, someone who was hungry. So in the end, and it is, and you could see his craft, his work, and things like that. And I'm hoping the Nets do something because they're wasting the prime of that man's career. But it definitely, I think, and obviously he probably sees it this way, where people were trying to figure out what Cam Thomas was, right? Like, he was obviously a great scorer, but is he a guy that's going to have longevity in the NBA? And then that right there just kind of, I think, hit the reset on people going, no, this kid's serious about ball. Like, and that was when he was in the midst of what, a 30-point game, 40, 30, 40, right? And the Nets weren't winning. And he was just going off. And, and everyone looked at him and was like, okay, this dude's serious about winning basketball games, not just stacking the stat sheet. So, like, whether you meant to or not with that, I think it directly led to like a perception shift and kind of shaping that Cam's real.
It's interesting. There are guys in the league that have that type of quiet, dry, observant personality. Cam gets grouped with Kawhi, and he gets grouped with Kobe White, and Brandon Ingram as kind of reserved guys. 3 out of those 4 guys I have a good relationship with. And Brandon Ingram, Kobe White, and Cam Thomas. I've been around Kobe White since his rookie year with the Chicago Bulls. And Kobe has come out of his shell a lot. And I was probably the first journalist that was inside close, like, with him. And that kind of shaped his dealings with other reporters. I remember being on the road earlier this year in Chicago, and I was having a conversation with somebody in the hallway. Kobe walks behind me, and I'll give you that version of what he said. All I hear is, at the top of his lungs, "Yo, Scoop, what's good, my guy?" And I'm looking, I'm like, "What up, Cole?" There's those. I remember having conversations with an agent about just a one-on-one that I wanted to set up in the offseason with a particular player. And he said to me, "It seems like you have good relationship with with the Kawhi types. And they told me that Ingram, Kobe White, and Cam Thomas fit that Kawhi type mold. And it's like, is it really Kawhi type, or they just don't trust the media, so they put on a certain facade, but then when they get with other people, it's a different conversation.
And I could see Brandon Ingram being that way because I feel like Brandon Ingram's been like one of the most disrespected stars in the NBA because to me, that guy has like, is he Giannis level? Like, I think he'll even say he's not where he wants to be there, right? But he's like that next tier star. Like, you can build a team around the talent. Brandon Ingram's that long guy that can dribble, that can do everything. And, whenever I start like anything on 2K, if I can go fantasy, I trade for Brandon Ingram. Like, he's one of those dudes that just does his thing. So I can understand him trying to just, keep his head down, be a little guarded, and just let the play on the court speak for itself.
I also think he was just in a talent, a congestedly talented Pelicans team.
Yes.
I remember having a conversation with David Griffin back in February about that team, and I shared with him that, when I looked at that team, I felt that they were what Oklahoma City became. And he told me, don't start with that because he'll just get frustrated. David Griffin, of course, is no longer with the team. He's moved on, but Ingram was in a situation where they were just, severely frustrated with the outcome, whether it was Zion's being injured, Ingram being injured, CJ McCollum just playing on a talent-laden team with guys that were always hurt. I mean, even their backup point guard Hawkins could shoot the lights out. Willie Green is a basketball brainiac. Yep. Zion, when healthy, is just the man. But getting it all together was their Achilles heel. And, the Pelicans felt that it was time to trade Ingram. But I also know that Brandon was unhappy with just the direction of the team, not so much because they were building around Zion. It's just, I don't think, and this is just my gathering information, not speaking for Brandon. I feel like I feel from my observation that Brandon was in a position where, one, he wasn't getting his money that he felt he deserved. Two, they were building around Zion, which meant that they only saw value for Zion, but didn't see what Brandon's value would be meshed with Zion, and maybe it was better parted ways. But I think Ingram in Toronto is a fresh start amongst other young guys.
I don't want him in my division. I don't want him in my Brooklyn Nets division. I don't want to see that guy on an extended schedule. He's sure. And you have him and you put him in there, Scotty Barnes. Him and Scotty Barnes are going to complement each other very nicely and I think that's also kind of like they can play with the chip on their shoulder, right? Because Scotty's kind of that forgotten superstar. Because I'm putting Scotty up there at that level. He just constantly gets huge double-doubles. Like the guy's a beast, but again, Toronto has struggled to maintain talent over there, especially since their championship run with Kawhi and all them. So I think that's going to be a good fit for Brandon, and it's unfortunate for my Nets that it's going to be a good fit because I think they're going to be a very scrappy team that can absolutely threaten for a wild card. I could see them battling for a wild card this year. That's a better group than I think people give it credit. So, I mean, and it goes to show again, you got stories for days. You've been doing this for years and you've been around the players, for a very long time, especially even at a young age and things like that. So you have so much. And I think that kind of parlays into what we're about to talk about. Season 3 of Scoopy Selects coming soon, starting on the 3rd, right? Is that when you're dropping the first one? The 2nd, you're dropping the first one. So what can we expect from season 3? Season 1 and 2 had big names. You always pull the big names. Now, the thing with the selects is it's quite literally you are selecting from anywhere and everywhere. It is, just entertainment. It's sports. It's not just basketball. It's everywhere. So any teasers that we got going over here? What are you giving us?
The first 2 will definitely go viral because they're topical.
I like that. I like that. I like that. I'm excited for that. So the first one comes out in the second. When you dropping the second one? Is it going to be weekly for this?
The second one drops September 9th.
Okay. So 7 days later. I love it. So I'm excited for that. Um, the selects have been fun because it's very much in the sense these, podcast snippet forms, but extended, right? They're not your shorter ones. They're more like your 10, 20-minute type of ones. What made you start thinking of doing the selects as opposed to keeping with what you just do traditionally with Scoopy Radio?
Scoopy Select started when I was partnering with a company who was looking a company that was supposed to pay for me and my team to go to a certain location to record something on their behalf, and they ended up not spending the money, and I invested in myself and my team to fly to the location where it was, and I felt the need to not give them any credit for it and bring a mic flag that said Scoopy on it that I had not yet used. And that was the springboard for Scoopy Selects back in 2023, and we haven't looked back. And there are conversations being had now with my team behind closed doors about um, opportunities that extend outside of just doing it out of my own pocket. Scoopy Selects for the last 3 years has been that. And the funny thing is, season 1 and season 2 were all taped in the same location. Season 3 was not.
Oh, okay. I like that. So, what's been your favorite part about doing the selects, about doing it in that type of way, as opposed to, again, what you traditionally do?
Um, Usually the people that I'm interviewing, I have a relationship with. Um, if you'd like to know who the first guest for season 1 is, I can tell you if you're wondering.
Hell yeah, I want to know. I always like to know this type of stuff.
Dwight Howard will be the first guest on season 1, or
I
will be the first guest since season 3, episode 1 of Scoopy Selects.
Now, Dwight has had a nice resurgence over there at the Big Three. He's playing really good basketball. Now, you spent a little time. I know that just being around the Big Three. What was it like watching that basketball and, a lot of really good old heads playing there, still playing really good high level ball. I love watching Joe Johnson just continue to be Joe Johnson. Like,
Well,
it's
first,
awesome.
I'll say that the relationship with Dwight, professionally, that I have with Dwight extends during his time with the Los Angeles Lakers,
Yep.
dating back to 2019-2020 season, when the world ended up shutting down because of COVID. And Dwight, of course, joined that Lakers team with LeBron and Anthony Davis. And I was very, very tapped into every little thing that was going on with the Lakers, whether it was, J.R. Smith getting a workout, even LeBron joining the team, and Anthony Davis ultimately being traded to that team. And so the relationship with Dwight is one that has carried over for years during that locker room with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Kyle Kuzma, Jared Dudley, Rajon Rondo, LeBron.
Yeah.
It's I was with that Lakers team the day before Kobe passed, and I knew what the dialogue was about Kobe Bryant. And you're actually going to get into that with another interview that I have lined up with Scoopy Selects, and that is going to go viral. I can't give that away, but
That's okay.
what I'll say is that the relationship with the Big Three that I have has dated back to its first ever game, which was actually at the Barclays Center, I believe, in 2017.
Yep.
And I've seen the growth of the Big Three, and Ice Cube puts a good product on the floor. I'm glad to see Joe Johnson get his.
I love Michael Beasley playing. Michael Beasley playing good basketball. Like, it's fun.
As well as Lance Stevenson, as well as Montrezl Harrell, as well as all those guys. So for me, I'm definitely pleased to see guys that I've covered and gotten to know still play basketball and be in a good space and use that opportunity to go back to the league or to play overseas. Montrezl Harrell is a guy that has used the big three to springboard things quite well. He was playing in Puerto Rico. He's been playing, I believe, in Australia as well. And so, the big three showcases him in the U.S. and gives him an opportunity. Michael Beasley, same thing. It gives certain guys opportunity. Joe Johnson, you asked me about him. He used the big three to go back to playing in the NBA for a period of time.
Yes, he
And so
did.
I'm hopeful that same thing will apply to guys like Michael Beasley, as well as Lance Stevenson, as well as Montrezl Harrell and others. So Dwight Howard will be inducted into the Naismith Hall of Fame next week,
As he should be.
and we delve into that whole process of the big three, or as well as him being inducted into the Hall of Fame and many more other things. It will be something that will be a resounding yell across the NBA landscape beginning on September 2nd.
I love that. So when it comes to the big three, I'm curious what's your perspective, because obviously 3-on-3 ball is an Olympic sport, right? And I mean, America didn't look good. Jimmy Fredette was leading that men's group. The women's group, it was Sue Bird was maybe the lead woman there. And I think the women performed better than the men, but neither of them performed up to, basketball. Americans take damn pride in our basketball, right? Like, we're good at what we do. And neither of them performed up to snuff. Is Ice Cube looking at the big three as kind of a springboard to kind of train up people for that 3-on-3 ball for the Olympics at all? Or does he want to keep it as completely and totally his separate entity that is fun, has that 4-point shot? Like, does he ever want to make it that training ground to get some young players that maybe can't play in the NBA but have aspirations for going to the Olympics to do that?
I haven't had that conversation with Cube, but what I will say is that it sounds good if the NBA is a feeder for FIBA and USA basketball, dating back to the Dream Team to current day. Why could Big Three not be the feeding ground for 3-on-3 basketball in the Olympics? It would make sense, just from my opinion.
And especially G League guys, right? Like, you see G League guys that maybe you could see aren't going to go to the NBA, right? Like, they're good in the G League. They're obviously professionals. Maybe they'd be better in that 3-on-3 setting, right? And chart putting them towards there. Like, it does. It makes a lot of sense in my eyes.
Yeah, I think it's something to consider. It's something to look at, and I will keep my ears open and my eyes on what that would look like in the future. Not to downplay your question, I don't know the answer to that question, but my opinion is that I think you could get a better group of people representing the men and the women, pulling from the big three. I mean, even Lisa Leslie being associated with the big three, I'm sure she still has legs, and if she wanted to participate, she could.
100%.
But I think she's done enough in her respective league that I don't necessarily think she needs that adulation.
So this is a kind of off topic. Did you see that Rajon Rondo has now risen to the #1 flag football quarterback? Did you know that he was playing flag ball at a serious level?
No. I did know that he was coaching AAU, and I think his sons are very involved in that process. And the only reason why I know that is because his high school alma mater, Oak Hill, had something at the Four Seasons Hotel back in the early spring, and he couldn't make it because he was coaching. That I knew. But as far as the flag football, no, I didn't know that, and I'm happy for him.
Cool. Hell yeah.
I've always looked at Rajon as a very he has high emotional IQ and high basketball IQ. And that is something that, just in my conversations with Rajon, I knew, dating back to his time with the Celtics, but also during his time with the Lakers, but also what his peers say about him, voluntarily, not having to dig it from them. So I'm not surprised that the point guard in the NBA is transitioning into the quarterback in the flag football league. Would imagine that is very low mileage on his knees. And to me, that we've talked about that Lakers team that won the championship in the bubble in 2020. J.R. Smith, who transitioned from winning 2 championships in the NBA to playing college golf.
At a pretty high level too.
At a very high level. But J.R. was playing golf in high school. And so to me, it didn't really surprise me that he transitioned and did well. So
Mhm.
Rondo, good point guards can play quarterback. It's just that he's now quarterback in reverse. Usually you're quarterback in high school, maybe college, and then you go to the NBA. He's doing it in reverse. He won 2 championships in the NBA, and then he transitioned into playing flag football. I still do think that when it's all said and done, though, Rondo is going to coach in the NBA.
That's fantastic. So real quick caveat, Ty's coming in saying you doing a different day. We just pushed it back a day because Scoop's my boy. He couldn't do Wednesday. He was still traveling. So we always move for Scoop and we never have a problem doing that at all. So with Rondo, it's interesting too, because number one, I'm happy. And I think that having him as somebody who's already been a major pro athlete, like there was that one guy that came out that was like, I don't want the NFL guys coming in. I'm the best quarterback. And people were shrugging him off, right? But you have a guy like Rondo who's already established as a superstar pro athlete, where I feel like the other NFL players would respect him more and be like, you know what, Patty, maybe you don't have to come play. Tua Taga, you don't have to come play. Rajon's playing QB. We can get some other NFL wide receivers around him. But I think that respect is good because I feel like he can go to the Olympics. And I would love to see Rajon being a quarterback in the Olympics on flag. But on top of that, with Rondo, I feel like Rondo's interesting. Because like you mentioned, he has those 2 championships. And although the Celtics had the big three, he was like the fourth member of the big three. Without him, I don't know if they win those championships because he was such a good cog to distributing and running that offense perfectly. The thing with Rondo too is I feel like Rondo, if he was 5-10 years before that, we would have been talking about him as one of the best point guards of all time because he had that about him where he was just dribbling on point, distributor, all world defender. You know what I mean? And we would be looking at him going, okay, who's the better on ball defender, Gary Payton or Rajon Rondo? And they both distribute and things like, I really feel like Rondo had great success and he deserves all the flowers. He's an amazing player. I feel like he could have been like a all-time Hall of Fame type of level great 5-10 years before. Do you agree, disagree in terms with this game?
I can see it. I think Rondo had time to play on the Celtics before Garnett and Allen got there. Rondo was criticized early on because he had a temper and had a certain security detail assigned to just him because of that temper. And he was dealing with a lot of personal things in his life, and he ended up getting through all of that. I think that if Rondo was in that league 10 to 15 years earlier, 5 to 10 years earlier, knowing what I know about that situation, I personally feel like there would have been reporters and experts
Could he have gone like the Vernon Maxwell route?
Hold on. No. I want to say this the right way. I feel like people would have pigeonholed him and labeled him like they did Rod Strickland. And I don't feel like Rod Strickland was always handled the right way.
I could see that.
But the thing is, you could never deny Rod Strickland's talent. And I feel like Rod Strickland had hidden talent. I feel like Rod Strickland crawled so that Rondo could run. And I feel like Rondo was the type of person that had to be on a team with other stars, with Doc Rivers as the head coach, in order to be successful, and it worked.
I could see that definitely. And I could see the comparison. I think it's a good comparison in terms of how they were covered and things like that. And I think, to another degree, like Marbury kind of falls into that, right? Like where even though Marbury was a superstar, just the way he was covered was different than other superstars.
I think Marbury's style of play was futuristic in the sense of today's point guard is Damian Lillard, is Derrick Rose, is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They're not just distributing point guards. I think even Darren Williams, when he was playing in Utah and playing in Jerry Sloan's system, I think when he was traded to the Nets, in my opinion, he developed some bad habits because he didn't trust his teammates in the New Jersey Nets iteration of basketball. And so when he came to Brooklyn and he had other teammates like Brook Lopez, like Joe Johnson, like Chris Humphries and others, even to Gerald Wallace, there was a level of trust that he had because there was a team that was assembled that complimented him. I think Stephon Marbury, and during his time in the NBA, had a lot of things in his bag. I just think playing in New Jersey and losing all the time, and prior to that being in Minnesota, where from what I know, the Timberwolves handsomely paid KG, but what about Stephon?
Yep.
Stephon wanted to get out of there. And I just think because he's been on teams like the Nets where they weren't good, and then he
Yep.
went to Phoenix and was traded for Jason Kidd. He did play in Phoenix with Amari and played with Sean Marion and others, but I think that his body of work and his career overall, however, he had impact in high school. He had impact playing in China on the global level, and he has Hall of Fame numbers in the NBA. My hope is that at some point he will get the nod as a global ambassador, having had impact on many levels in basketball.
I mean, every basketball fan and even young kids are introduced to the clip of him and Kobe going back and forth in the All-Star game. Like that
Oh yeah.
is one of the funnest clips, and me as a Nets fan just watching that with pride, right? Watching them back when, which they need to get back to, just wear your home and away jerseys. Like those were
Mhm.
the best times. And also these young guys that like we idolize Kobe and those players, you sure as hell don't when it comes to the All-Star game, because Kobe would never let what goes on go on right now. He would look at all of them and go, we're giving up 150 points. Who's giving up 150 points? We ain't get like hell no. Like, so
Mhm.
they need to get a little more Kobe in them with All-Star time.
There you go.
So when it comes to the NBA, we'll talk a little bit of NBA before we jump out of here. Um, Teams are, off-season mode. Guys are, I mean, I think guys play too much basketball throughout the year right now. I think people need to take more of a break. I think a lot of people complain about the schedule and all the injuries. Guys need to stop going to the gym and playing so hard all the time, but I digress. But teams are, slowly starting to get back into it at this point. The offseason is around the corner, winding down. We're going to start getting camp and stuff soon. The rookies are in there. The rookies are doing their thing. They're working out. What are your feelings for this upcoming season, especially now? I think the East is wide open. Yeah, Halliburton's out for an extended period of time. Jason Tatum is out for an extended period of time, both dealing with those Achilles injuries. Um, how do you feel the NBA is going to go? Do you have an NBA Cup pick, or do you care about giving an NBA Cup pick? And who do you feel is championship bound? We're doing this way too early, but I'm making you do
I don't have an opinion about the cup. Worst publicly sharing, but I'll just say I think I'd like to see an Atlanta or a Pelicans team win it. As far as um, the Eastern Conference goes, I think it's going to come through Orlando, the Knicks, or Cleveland. I also like Atlanta as a
it.
dark horse in the East. I think the Atlanta Hawks had a very good offseason. As far as the Western Conference goes, I still think you got to go through Oklahoma.
Yep.
I still think the Memphis Grizzlies have had a quiet offseason. I'd like to see them make some noise. I think, the Rockets have assembled a good team. How that plays out will be, interesting. Um, I'd like to see how the Lakers play out. I like the addition of Aiton. Um,
Yes.
I think that is severely underrated.
Even though
Uh,
Aiton has a hard spot for me because I was a big Arizona basketball fan. And the year where he was the best guy, they get knocked out the first round. I'm like, I hate DeAndre Ayton. Like they were ready to be good. That was a really good Arizona team. They should have been Final Four. And I criticize dudes in college. You're that guy. You should be able to will your way in college. Like that's just my opinion. But maybe that's water under the bridge. That's many years ago now.
yeah, no, I'm with you. No, man, I
So
think
quick question with the Lakers, because I personally think I think Bronny James is going to take a jump this year. I don't think Bronny James is ever going to be a superstar. I'm going on record and saying that. But I think he will shape out to be a nice role player, career contributor, coming off the bench and maybe a starter on some teams, right? I think we're going to see Bronny James take a nice jump this year. Have you seen anything in terms of like G League play and things like that that indicates to you that he's going to be a regular rotation guy on that team this year?
I mean, I've watched him play in the G League, and uh, with Quincy Oliveri, and the two of them together play good basketball. Um, their head coach used to be an assistant with the Washington Wizards, and I got to know him quite a bit.
Mhm.
And I know the style that he runs, and that style definitely complements Bronny's play. The way he plays on the South Bay Lakers is very different than in garbage time that he plays in JJ Redick's system playing for the Los Angeles Lakers. And I think one of the things that really held him back was the fact that you were so guard led and you had D'Angelo Russell before the trade. You had um, just a lot of guards that he was probably like the fourth or the fifth string guy.
Yeah.
Um, I'm non-committal on just where I think he'll fit in the system this year because they haven't gone through training camp yet, so I can't really give you an answer. But what I will say is that I'd hope. I've covered Bronny James since his senior year of high school, and got to know him quite a bit during the McDonald's All-American weekend. And
Yep.
Nice kid. Spent some time with him his freshman year at USC, and spent some time with him last season in Los Angeles. And you want to root for a kid that definitely loves basketball and
And we
wants
need to
play it.
remember the scare that he and the James family went through his freshman year at USC. Like
Sure.
people forget
Before his
that.
freshman year. This was going to summer
Yeah,
into him checking in.
exactly.
Yeah.
People forget the kid had cardiac arrest. Like he could have died. Like, and for the fact that he's still there kicking and fighting and battling, like kudos. The man's alive.
But you also know that last name on his jersey is what people care about.
Absolutely.
So you know that there's added pressure when you are in a fishbowl and have been in a fishbowl since you were born. So it's, but I don't necessarily think that you have to buy into that. I think you just play your game and let people talk.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've seen some, it is tough, especially like it's very rare that you have, a son that follows up that is as good as their superstar dad. And Bronny, you have to be the best player ever, right? To beat your dad because people look at LeBron as either 1 or 1A, right? And I put him as 1A to Michael. And I think that you'll have people that'll say he's top, at worst, people will put LeBron James at top 5 ever. And that's at worst. So you're asking a kid to now become one of the best players in the history of the game, period. Going up with the greats. And that's like, if he becomes a starter and has a 10-year career, that's a successful time for anybody, right?
Right.
So it's just unfair. But again, it comes with territory. He knew it was going to come there. When you decide to engage and take that same path as your father, he's a grown man. He knew it was going to come. Like you had to know that this was going to happen. Fair or not. So quick question for you on that front. Is LeBron waiting for Bryce to get in the NBA before he retires? Do you think he's waiting?
Yes, I do.
Now, I'm high on Bryce. I think if there's anyone that's going to be close to dad's legacy, I see LeBron so much in Bryce James. Just in the way his body is built, especially in the high school mold, the way he plays the game. Like, I can see Bryce James walking in as a legitimate superstar day one.
Agreed.
So, yeah, no, I'm excited for that.
I agree, and I think it's so low profile.
Yeah.
He wasn't a McDonald's All-American.
Nope.
He bounced around to different high schools. He had the advantage of watching not just his dad, but his brother play, and all the scrutiny that came with his brother. And I think that people questioned whether Bronny and LeBron would ever be teammates in the NBA, and they were. And I think the same thing is going to happen with Bryce. It's just a matter of how that happens. And if you paid attention to my reporting over the summer, the options available.
So my conspiracy is that Sean Marks made all these, I'm not going to say bad because I haven't seen him play, but borderline decisions in the first round this year so they can continue to not be good so that they can go and snag Bryce and make him the face of the Brooklyn Nets.
Okay.
I would love that. It's probably not going to happen, but I would freaking love that. Give me Bryce
I mean,
James.
here's what I'll say about that. You know, you talked about the different fan bases in Twitter, Nets Twitter, Knicks Twitter, Lakers Twitter. I think I have a good rapport with Nets Twitter. And
You do.
I think the only time they were a little upset with me was when I wasn't co-signing Dylan Harper and or Bryce, or rather
Ace
Ace
Bailey.
Bailey joining that team because of not just my opinion, but based off of intel. And so um, I'd like to keep that good rapport with Nets Twitter going, but um, I think that any team that I think any team that drafts Bryce James has a good chance of LeBron at least considering signing there. But we said the same thing about Bronny, and that 55th pick went in the direction of the Los Angeles Lakers. So while it sounds good for the Nets from a seeding perspective, I just know that LeBron and his representation have a good way of making phone calls. So I don't think it's going to be that easy.
It's not. The only difference I think is here is we're looking at Bryce as a top 5, top 10 pick as opposed to Bronny, who was always going to be that second round pick, right? So it's like I think that there is, while LeBron has pull, LeBron will always have pull. LeBron can pick up the phone and call every single executive in the NBA and go, "Don't draft my son," right? And most of them will go, "We feel you, LeBron." Okay. It might
Yeah.
be a little different when you have a guy of that caliber where they're going to pick up the phone and go, "I'm sorry, but I think your son can help us win a championship." Like
Yep.
today. So there's that difference.
There's that, but there's also LeBron having a contract that's friendly to when he leaves or when he's a free agent this offseason.
Yeah.
He can go where he needs to go. But then there's another scenario of the other teams, the other 4 teams that I mentioned, the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Golden State Warriors, as well as the Los Angeles Clippers, as well as the Dallas Mavericks. And as you know from my reporting, that Dallas portion of it has been heavily talked about,
Yep.
internally and externally. There's just a lot of scenarios, and I can't predict the weather on December 9th.
I mean, with your reporting lately, if you wait 6 months to a year, you can go back and there it is. Like you have been 6 months to a year with your long-term reporting of what if. All you got to do is wait. And I feel like the executives are looking at it going, "Oh, that's what Scoop wants us to do. Okay, let's do it." Like it's like you have like a book right there. You're just writing it in, and the notes just like jump into people's heads. So, yeah, you've been really good. You've called so much in terms of Luca and things like that, and
Thank you.
things that you haven't gotten credit for. Things that people do give you, but not enough, right? I don't think you get enough credit. And in terms of Nets Twitter, you're fine in Nets Twitter, and I think you will be fine. You have certain people of Nets Twitter that know who you are, that got your back. I'll give Jay from BK a shout out. Jay's that dude. And I feel like there's certain people that talk in Nets Twitter, and then when they talk, Nets Twitter speaks. That's like Nets Twitter listens. Jay's one of those dudes. You have the people, Saint's a good guy over there. Saint's doing his thing, and there's a few people. Nets Kingdom has a very good name over there, and they're good. Listen, Nets Kingdom, when I enjoy, I don't go in many spaces. I think spaces, a lot of them are whack. The Nets Kingdom spaces, they're pre and post game. It's not a bunch of people just saying the same thing. They are just arguing the whole time. And some of it's nonsensical, some of it's fanboying, because we do that. We're Nets fans especially. But
Right.
there is that sense of, you can have differing opinions there. And while you might get pushback, it's a good spot to be. And I know you've hung out at the times in those spaces and stuff like that, every once in a while popping in, and they do a good job, and reporters do trust them. You get some major, Brooklyn Nets reporters. I remember when Christian Winfield, when he was Brooklyn Nets, he would pop in there all the time. And it's like, so you have that group. So I think you're fine. I think there's people that know you, and even if they're grumpy with your reporting at times, you'll always be Scoop. And we know where you started. You are a Nets guy forever, whether you want to be or not. We will never forget Net Slamming Planet, and we won't let you forget it even if you want to. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So you're in for Nets all the time. Nate G over here, he's an Arizona native, saying people here in Tucson are stoked about Bryce. You should be.
Yeah.
You should. That's a good team over in Arizona too. And adding Bryce to it, that's a Final Four team. I think that Arizona team could be real good this year. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, I'm not an Arizona fan anymore. They pissed me off. That DeAndre Ayton. I lived through Damon Stoudemire's disappointment. Damn it! And oh my God,
Ooh-wee.
I lived through that disappointment. Okay. And DeAndre Ayton was the icing on the cake. I only liked them because my name is Alex. They had the giant A. I like red, white, and blue, so I was in. Now, and I was like, when I picked them, I was like, I had to be like 8, and I was playing like whatever game, and I saw them, and I'm like, I like them. So
There you
that
go.
that is the lure, but not anymore. I can't say I'm an Arizona fan. I'll pay attention to them. I'm not a fan.
Okay.
I
Okay.
can say that.
Okay.
So last but not least, before I let you bounce, outside of Scoopy Selects, where are we going next? What's Scoopy's future? Obviously you've been branching out more than just basketball. You've had some sick interviews with people just in cultural spaces, entertainment. Outside of Selects, what else can you give us? What are your plans for the future?
Um, Scoopy.com is, a hub of just interviews. I have an interview with Scoopy Radio that's dropping tomorrow with an actor. Um, and that's it right now. Scoopy.com. I just dropped something with a guy named Freeway Rick Ross in the blog section. He was like Frank Lucas before. Well, some people would put him in the same category as Frank Lucas, and just
Yep, yep.
that. But that interview ended up getting picked up by Complex yesterday. Um, just the conversation. So there's that. Um, like I said, I'm dropping an interview tomorrow on Scoopy Radio, which you can check out on my YouTube channel, and there'll be a written portion over in the blog at scoopy.com. Other than that, just relaxing and enjoying the rest of the teaspoon of summer that's left.
And I love seeing all this. I love seeing Ben Troop being on there. NFL, Rodney Pete jumping on there, Lawrence Taylor unplugged, and it's like you are much much more than basketball. And I give you credit for that because it does take a little bit of bravery to step outside of what you're known for, right? Like, and again, it's not like you're not known in other communities. Obviously, in the hip hop community, you've been in there before. You wrote about that, but in order to branch out, go to other sports, other things like that, and obviously to have that trust and rapport from your work in the NBA, from your work in hip hop and things like that, for these other athletes and entertainers to trust you, it's a testament to you, brother. You're
Thank
good
you,
at what
sir.
you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that for real, and I appreciate you having me on the platform to talk basketball
Of course, of course.
and
So
more things.
everybody, oh, and everything. Listen,
Yes, sir.
if it's fun. Like I like doing this with you, but I do enjoy, our off the record conversations, if not more, where we're just chopping it up. It's funny. Me and you still haven't met in person, which is mostly my fault because when you're in the city, I'm just lazy as hell and I don't make it
Right.
out there. But I'll take the blame here. But I do consider you one of my good friends.
Bless.
We have things to, whenever there's things that come up, I know you call me, I call you. If when I was running, when I made the decision to run, I called you when we talked about it, right? Like,
Sir.
different things in my life that I'm trying to do. You're one of the confidants in there. So I always appreciate you taking the time to come on, brother.
Likewise, brother. Thank you for the opportunity to be myself.
Of course, always. So once again, he is Brandon Scoopy Robinson. Um, Check out Scoopy Selects. You will not be disappointed if you're not subscribed to him on YouTube already. I don't know what the hell you're doing. Go Brandon Scoopy Robinson, subscribe over there, and you'll see it next week. He gave us that sneak into Dwight Howard is his first interview there, and you'll want to go hear what Dwight has to say. And make sure you go on Scoopy Radio. And yeah, man, if you want the best insights into the NBA, again, the quote that we are giving you and you will always take, the insider that the players trust. And I
Yes,
think
sir.
that's the best way to describe you, because you have the players ear and other insiders don't. And I could say that, and I will leave it at that. So I appreciate everyone that watched. Obviously, Nate and Caveat hanging out in the chat. We appreciate you guys as always. Whether you watch from YouTube, X, Facebook, Kick, Rumble, we appreciate it all. We'll be back next week. Caveat, I should be back next week on a Wednesday to answer your question in terms of when we are back. I'm back next week on Wednesday. So regularly scheduled programming. But we will see everyone next week. I am getting out of here. Scoop's getting out of here. He's jet lagged. He's tired. He wants to go to sleep. So I'll